And hey there, hi there, ho there, hello there, and a gracious good Saturday morning to you. Welcome back to another exciting edition of the Cardinal Couple Radio Hour podcast, where we discuss the joy and excitement of UofL women's athletics. We have been on a hiatus of sorts for a couple weeks here, but are back with you now and have a foursome in the house today as we kick off the month of June with some, believe it or not, still vibrant and active U of L women's sports news. And usually this time of year we're kind of stretching for that, but we've still got it going on, so we'll definitely get into it. Like I mentioned, four in the house today. Me, Polly, here with you. I'm also joined by Jeff and Case and Jared. Daryl was out on vacation. I would imagine she is probably not at Jim Patterson, but doing something else. But anyway, a strong foursome in here today, so let's kind of catch up with the guys. Case was filling us in on the first sign in from the new house office earlier today on the computer, so it had to be a monumental occasion, sir.
Yeah, it took me about 2 weeks to get my office set up. Just I would come in and try and put a bunch of wires all over the place, and then decide that I didn't like where they were, and then try and put them somewhere else, and then it just took quite a while, but it's set up now, and I even did was able to do a little bit of back of house cable management. So because there's not really a back of house with my desk, and you can see it as soon as you walk in the door. So it looks nice, and it should sound a lot better with carpet in here for now, um, until we take this up. But we'll come back with rugs. But it's nice to have a window be above the subterranean level, and most importantly, on fiber internet. So it's super
Woo.
fast.
Yeah, indeed. So we can no longer refer to you as broadcasting from a cold, clammy sub level basement with no carpet.
No, no, I have graduated.
There you go. Next thing you know, he'll be on top of the 800 building talking to us, right? Jeff McAdams in the house with us today. Jeff has been out touring the wild, wild west out there and points beyond, even at Alaska for a while. He didn't get over to Russia, I'm assuming.
No.
But Jeff, kind of tell us about your trip there, bud.
No, I was going to joke about, I have no news to share, but no, I have all the news. Yeah, it was out for the last 2 weeks. Part of why we weren't online a little bit was on vacation. For about a 2.5 week vacation, went out to the Northwest up into Alaska. Started in Fairbanks, came down through, and then got on cruise ship in Seward and came down through the Inner Passage down there, down to end up in Vancouver. And it was a wonderful vacation. We had absolutely phenomenal weather for it. Just crazy, crazy good. Like everybody up there was like, you all are so lucky on the weather you're getting. And yeah, it was great. Wonderful. It was clear, pretty warm most days. Could see things that just you normally can't see when you're up in the area, and it's fantastic. So, had a great vacation. Uh, got back, turned in my resignation at work the day I got back. So that was interesting. And then so in my kind of notice period, going to be starting a new position here later this month that I am super super excited for. So yeah, kind of been a crazy, crazy couple of weeks for me. And then I just spent over $300 on Adafruit this morning on some electronic stuff that I'm gonna be setting up and have some fun with that too. So a little bit of hobby stuff there. Yeah, just yeah. Um, I'm in a good place right now, having a lot of fun. So
Jeff just sitting there watching the paint dry, nothing going on in his life.
yeah,
Uh, yeah, you were even out recruiting opposing volleyball fans too, right? What's this Michigan or what's the Wisconsin deal here?
yeah. Well,
Are we
actually,
losing you to the Big Ten, bud?
no, actually, on the trip, I ran into a couple of other big volleyball fans. One was in Nebraska, and he knew all about the U of L and of course Danny Busby Kelly with our associations with Nebraska. We talked about that and enjoyed that. And then on one of the excursions that I went on, the guide for the excursion was from Wisconsin, and she's a big volleyball. She mentioned she was a big volleyball fan, so we connected there and chatted. Turns out she had been at the Final Four for in Columbus this past year, as was I, right, where UofL lost to Wisconsin. So we kind of joked about that a little bit. Told her that I was not a big fan of her at the moment, but we took a reunion photo, is what we called it, since we had both been in Columbus and then kind of connected up in the wilds of southeastern Alaska. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's always good. It's one of the things I love about sports and volleyball is it's a connection point between people that you can find and have some fun with. So um, yeah, a lot of fun.
Yeah, Jeff definitely had a good time on that. On his next vacation, he has promised us that he will be hanging out with Louisville women's soccer stars from the 80s and 90s in various points of the
Right.
nation. Trying to get all those lined up for him right now as we can. I found one so far for you, but Jared Anderson in the house. Jared, of course, our cameraman. He's been a busy guy taking photos all around this great land of ours, and we'll be doing more of the same again today, Jared. You're not slowing down a bit, even though the seasons are over, are you?
Yeah, and get to head back out to Jim Patterson Stadium again this afternoon, as I did yesterday for postseason baseball. The number of games out at Patterson this year are limited, as they did not get a top 8 seed. So this weekend will most likely be their final home games, regardless of the result. Hoping they get some wins, though. I was kind of hopeful they would have gotten some wins last week while they were down in Charlotte, as Katie and I were going to be in the area over the weekend, and I could have snuck in there. They made the semifinals. Of course, yeah, they kind of ended up pooping the bed on that one, so they didn't get that far. But yeah, Katie and I went down, got engagement photos taken down there in South Carolina, saw her family. The timing worked out. It was her grandpa's 90th birthday was over that weekend, so her parents were planning a big surprise party out at his church, and well, I'd say got roughly 100 people out there for a surprise party, and he was certainly tickled pink with all the loved ones that showed up for that event. So it was a nice weekend. I've learned I definitely prefer to be behind the camera instead of in front of it. And we even had time to head over to the courthouse there in York County to apply for the marriage license, which should arrive here in the mail within the next couple of weeks.
I'm still baffled by the idea of a 90th surprise birthday party. If I'm about to turn 90 and my family has not told me I'm having a party, we're gonna fight. Like you're not surprising me with a birthday party. We're blowing it out for my 90th birthday. We got to plan this
he
whole thing. Like
he was definitely trying to
surprise.
pull some guilt trip moves. He goes, "Well, can we invite so and so?" And just because he thought we were just gonna have a small like hangout of like immediate family, and he's like, "Can we invite so and so and have these people come?" And her parents were pretty adamant and like, "Nope, it's just gonna be us." And then trying to get him to sneak into the church on a Sunday afternoon while after
Throwing
church was
hands.
ended, he didn't like that we were trying to sneak into church after hours. Like that was a battle on its own, just getting him into the front door there. But it turned out really well, and I got to meet a lot of Katie's family that I've never met before from around the country.
I just hope that I'll be able to remember when I'm 90 when my birthday is, you know.
And who your friends are, who's supposed to be
Yeah,
around.
and who's supposed to show up? Yeah, you used to be in Cardinal couple, did you? Huh? I don't know any birds. Get out of here. Where's my inframal? No. So anyway, sounds like fun there. As for me, it's another week kind of hanging out, watching U of L athletic events kind of unfold and stuff like that. Been following the NBA pretty closely this time of year to see what's going on there with some of our Cardinals, and hoping some of our other Cardinals will get back into the WNBA. We'll see what happens on that, and then found out that Sam Fearing is not in Germany; she's in Mexico now. So I don't know what's next for her. Hopefully, a shot at the WNBA. But I can just see her in a Mexican town where she's probably a foot taller than anybody else, and wearing a sheriff's badge in addition to a Mexican hat. But all fun stuff there, all good stuff there. We will go ahead and move on into the next part of the show where we go through our scheduling and Twitter. This will be very easy for you. I'm assuming in today's case shouldn't take you too long to run through scheduling and Twitter.
No, it's lightning speed here. We got one event on the schedule today. That's baseball taking on Michigan. Jared is here, which means that Louisville won yesterday and is not starting at noon. That game is at 4 p.m. It'll be on ESPN2 or 93.9. Then the only other event on the calendar before it officially collapses for the summer slump is track taking on the NCAA Outdoor Championships in Eugene, Oregon. That event goes from Wednesday the 8th through next Saturday the 11th. I think at least 3 U of L.
I would say it was like 4 or 5. I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Quite a few U of L competitors advanced out of the regionals last weekend. It's interesting that they. I wonder if it has to do with baseball regional weekend or something. It's interesting that they gave them a whole week off before they go to the nationals in Eugene. But either way, that's what we'll be keeping up with, and that is the last official U of L women's event on the calendar for the 2021-2022 athletic season. As for Twitter, I tweet is at best case scenario, BST case scenario. Polly is at Cardinal Couple. Jeff is at Jeff McAdams and at Card Couple Radio. Jared's at Mr. Anderson Jared. Daryl is at Daryl Faust 4. And as always, the right side of the site has our Twitter widget. It's the easiest way to keep up with all of the U of L women's athletics news, especially events like track and field, NCAA outdoor championships, where they'll tweet live results. Usually the easiest way to get those, since watching them can be difficult. Timing is a struggle, and even trying to figure out event times and start times and results on the internet can be difficult. But like I said, record speed.
Yeah, yes, indeed. We got through that quickly. And as Case mentioned, make sure and jump onto the Cardinal Couple on the website. Read our daily articles. Case with today's a very good write up today from him. And you'll find Daryl writing on Friday. And just throughout the whole week, you get all four, actually all five of us in there writing articles and filling in for each other occasionally from now and then in times like that. But we try to stay current and all about women's sports, and certainly some great stuff to read there. So, Dr. Paul recommends Cardinal Couple at least once a day, along with a healthy vegetable and fruit diet. Okay, should work for you. I was also just kind of curious. I've been trying to get together with Louisville women's basketball new assistant coach Shay Robinson, and this is like playing Dungeons and Dragons, and you don't know what's ahead of you because he has got so much stuff going on in June. And you think to yourself, an assistant coach busy in June? Oh yes, with recruitings and also with camps and stuff like that. That hasn't happened yet, but I do hopefully hope to be able to announce that I've got an interview lined up with him down the road. So we shall see what happens there. But let's move into the meat and bones of the show, so to speak, and kind of get into the activities that have been going on. And I guess the first one we should probably start out with is that the Cardinals have officially named themselves a new athletic director, and it's Tom Jarrett. No, it's not Tom Jarrett. It's our boy Josh, and Josh was the interim athletic director. I would say he was the overwhelming favorite to get the job, despite a kind of last minute coup attempt by Jarrett supporters. But Josh is the new AD now, and let's just kick it around the table here, guys. A good hire for Louisville. What do you all think about this hire, Jared? I know you've been following it pretty closely.
Yeah, so go and give him a shot. In his time as interim director, we haven't had any big scandals. We haven't had to go through and fire coaches for reasons unrelated to on-field success. A lot of the employees have sung praises about him already. He's actually fairly interactive with fans if you get out there and talk to him. Ran into Vince Tyree at baseball yesterday, and he had given a good word about Josh as well. And I don't see what he's done wrong in terms to not earn the chance to be the athletic director at this point. I mean, extending some contracts that I think we all believe needed to be extended. He listened to the fans, listened to the donors, hired Kenny Payne, kind of revitalized the whole men's basketball program from the inside out, which it's kind of a monumental thing in terms of what you look at for budgetary purposes with Louisville athletics. It opened up the budget a lot for our Olympic sports, which would be all of our women's sports at UofL, and allowing them to kind of proceed and progress further in areas that they may need to add a little money on. The coaches have already put out on social media their support, and just at this point, you ignore some of those Jurich supporters that are all about Jurich or nothing. Like if that's your mindset and you think you're going to be able to bully your way or harass your way into getting the way you want, yeah, we're not an elementary school, so we need to grow up and maybe have somebody go through and do a spelling and grammatical check for us at some point before we release public statements. But yeah, I'm all on board for Josh Hurd right now. Give him a chance. Let's see what he does.
That ill-fated letter from several high-up donors or former donors that wanted Tom Jurich in, which they had a fifth grade dropout right for them when not proofread it. Some interesting miscues in that letter. But yeah, Josh is here, and he's put in the road work in the past, doing various other things a year, and also at Villanova to be a qualification for the job. I think one of the main things that I know I'm kind of interested to see, and I'm sure you are as well, Case, is what's this guy going to do for Louisville women's athletics? I last saw him at the selection show for women's basketball. Jared was there with me, and he spent a lot of time at Jeff Walls' right elbow talking to him about stuff. So, is this going to be a good thing for women's sports with Josh in your Case?
Did we lose Case? Case, are you on mute?
Okay, well, we'll switch it
Sorry
over
about
to
that.
Jeff.
Whoop.
Yep, he was on mute. All right.
Case
like
was giving us this detailed answer, and he didn't have his mic on. All right.
it happens. It's been a while. Trying to get back in the swing of things. I'm not seeing any reason that he wouldn't be a good fit and wouldn't help propel the U of L women's athletics forward. When he was here from 07 to 16, one of the roles that he had was 4 years as the assistant AD, overseeing championships and facilities. While he was in that role, you had the softball stadium expansion. Lynn Stadium was built. The new press box at Louisville Lacrosse Stadium was built. Thornton's Academic Center for Excellence, which is beneficial to everybody, not just football. He was in charge of the 2015 and 2012 men's and women's cross country championships, the women's basketball regional in 2014, the women's volleyball championships in 2012, and the field hockey championships in 2012. I mean, he's been involved with U of L women's athletics, like you said.
And national. Not just us, yeah.
Right,
I mean,
right.
when you're talking about hosting those national championships, those are the overall national championships. That's not just our involvement with it.
Right, and everybody talks about how that helps. That has helped Kenny Payne and the service that he provides to U of L basketball. That he was always one of the head SIDs that oversaw national championship operations basically every year. To be entrusted with that and to play such a large role in that, it does mean something. I don't really understand the knocks on Hurd for some of the things he allegedly doesn't have. People talk about him not having a lot of fundraising experience, but he was the associate AD at Villanova that was in charge of internal operations finance, so at least knows something about how money works at a private institution. So pretty sure you can manage private funds at a public institution. But I think the big thing for me is everyone talks about how he's a rookie AD. I really don't think that that's that big of a deal. If you consider that he started at U of L in 2007 under Tom Jurich, if this weird hypothetical situation, so say, Tom Jurich was here until, he retired. He was retiring this year. If Hurd had the same experience, he was at U of L from 07 to 16. He went and spent some time at Villanova, and then he came back to U of L in 19 to work for Jurich and was named the AD in waiting. He would still be a rookie AD, and I don't think anybody would have any issue with it if Tom Jurich retired this year. So I don't think that it's such a critical issue that he's not been an athletic director. I don't think that this is the type of role. I don't think that that's the type of role in college athletics that a first time employee, as it were, when he's done all of the other roles throughout his career, I don't think it's that big of a deal as long as he can hire the right people around him.
And speaking of such hiring the right people around him, the university still does not have a permanent full-time sports information director yet as well. And that would be one of the, I would think, first things, Jeff, that Josh would be looking to put on board for the Cards. But certainly he's walking into a lot better situation, I think, than Vince Tyree did.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the the head SID position that's a relatively new development with Kenny Klein retiring. That'll be handled in due course. I'm not worried about that. There's no acrimony there. Everything's that's just somebody who has had a great career that's going to go enjoy retirement somewhat, and then hiring a successor for them. I don't see a problem there. Any challenges there?
Well, knowing what I know about Klein, I'm sure he'll be involved in
Oh yeah,
in that process.
oh, and he's yeah. Everybody's already said he's going to be.
I would
So
think he would be
yeah.
as well, because I understand he's kind of acting as the women's basketball interim SID right now, while Nick Evans, another one that we've seen move on to another position there.
Transitioning,
Yeah, and despite him being retired, he was working or is working this entire regional, as is the
Yeah.
entire U of L SID staff. I ran into every single one of them yesterday.
I'm sure this is all hands on deck. Is for that sort of thing. Yeah.
Tournament time, absolutely.
Yeah, I with Josh Hurd, I may be, I might be one of the few people that really thinks that this is a home run hire. I think it's fantastic for the position. I don't think there's any possible person who could have been a better hire for this. And I include in that his support for women's athletics. My first time I ever met him was in 2013 in New Orleans, where he was there supporting the women's basketball Final Four, while the men's basketball were playing in the Final Four in Atlanta. Right? He was supporting more on the women's side. Now there was a whole lot of the athletic department was shuttling back and forth between New Orleans and Atlanta that weekend, right? But I met him while he was director of championships in New Orleans, and got to speak with him some there. So that was the first time I met him. He's been supportive of women's athletics the whole time that I've ever seen him. I've seen him several times down at women's basketball and some other events. He's been a great guy. He's always been responsive. He always seems like he's a little reserved to me. Like he's like he doesn't want to talk to people, but when you do go up and talk to him, he's very personal and great. So I would absolutely, if you see him out, take a moment to say hi and get to know him. I think he's got some incredible experiences with the background that he's had here at UofL, at Villanova, previously here at UofL. He is no nonsense. He is a person of integrity and solid. And, that's what we need right now. We need stability. We need to kind of build this back on a solid foundation, this program back on a solid foundation, where it's been shaken a little bit over the past few years. So I'm excited. I'm ecstatic to have him on board.
Yeah, and I'll post just one more thing on what, kind of build on to what Jeff said. Everyone talked about how all of the coaches that people want to hire for all the roles, they need to understand, especially in basketball, they need to understand the culture and the role of U of L in the city. But then when it comes to the athletic director, they're more than happy to hire any athletic director off the street from a different university, rather than someone with over a decade of experience
in this program that understands how it works.
With the understanding. It's like, which one is it? Do you want people to have the experience in the city, or do you just want people to have experience in the job? Because I think that the experience in the program is more valuable.
Agreed.
One of the things I think that he'll come to task to and be judged on right off the bat is, what type of fundraiser is he? What kind of money can he bring in for an athletic department that is quite honestly in need of some financial support here, and some funds coming into the coffers to kind of help take care of the money that isn't there anymore, that needs to be replaced. And I think that one of the things he'll have to do is probably start hitting some of these pro Jared supporters up and showing them that, hey, I understand why you wanted your man in here and all, but it didn't happen. Will you be a good Cardinal and jump back on board with this, Jared? I think that's the approach he's almost got to take.
Oh, without a doubt. And Josh Hurd and Jim Patterson were up earlier this year at a game and talking. And I'm sure at that point they were talking about some fundraising and that aspect. And we haven't really seen much come from the Lynn family in recent years, anyways. And so I feel like those ties have kind of been severed a lot. So it's not going to be as much as I know UofL didn't hire who you wanted, but we haven't really had you involved with anything Louisville athletics wise in quite some time. What can we do to get you and your family back on board and interested in assisting us and supporting us? And the Ali family, they're going to keep supporting UofL. I know their name was listed, but you have to remember that uh, their son is an employee for UofL athletics at this time, so they're not going to up and abandon him either. So I think some of them they're voicing their frustrations right now, and I think they were trying to use a little bit of their money and power to influence the decision more than they need to. But I think for the most part, many of them will stay involved and support in some way or another, especially with their names being on buildings and different facilities. It would look bad if you just up and run all together. So you got to start with there, and I think one of the big things in terms of from the fans' point of view, is going to be ticket prices. And I know Paul, you voiced your frustration with the football season ticket prices before, and I think Josh, in terms of fundraising, sometimes charging less is more in the long run. You lower prices, you may get more people out there, and then that can turn into more concession stand income, more gift shop income, just more ticket sales in general. So sometimes you gotta, weigh the pros and cons of raising and lowering prices and figuring things out. Which, he's been in that role before, and he understands that. So we'll see what happens going forward.
Yeah, and then you mentioned the football pricing, which just to get this out of the way quickly and everything, after 49 years, guys, of attending Louisville football games, I have decided to not be a season ticket holder anymore due to a price increase that I felt was not warranted based on the type of results the season had in 2021 for the Cards, and also then they tack on this, which is supposedly free, but it's another thing added on to football tickets. It's going to cost you $199 a year per person, and just the combination of it all, my kind of dissatisfaction with the head coaching, and also the results of the team just made me decide, you know what? A lot of this are on TV anyway. I love to hear Paul Rogers broadcast any kind of game. And if need be, I'll sit and listen to my radio and listen to Paul Rogers call football if it's not on. So,
And we're in an era of that altogether. You're seeing it for a lot of the other sports too. You can sit at home and watch a women's basketball game and have 8 different camera angles, great in-depth analysis, replays. You can watch some of the smaller sports and have 1 to 2 camera angles. So why do you want to go out, battle the elements, deal with gas, deal with parking, pay $6 for a water bottle when you can have better amenities at home and still watch the game? And that's not going to be just a UofL thing going forward. That's going to be all sports in general as the age of technology continues to advance.
Yeah, and that's something also, you've got to look at, and Paul, I don't want to like say anything negative towards you, but as people age, this becomes more and more of an arduous thing to actually physically go to a football game, right? There's a lot of walking, there's a lot, right? In I know you've had a few mobility challenges, but that becomes a thing that gets factored into it. There has to be a turnover, a generational turnover over time as well. And, Josh may be a big part of being part of that kind of next generational turnover in ticket sales.
well, we certainly hope it is. And you are right. I mean, and most of the group that I tailgated with for over the last 25 years and all have either gotten to, like me, the age of where it ain't such an easy walk to go
Right.
across, Floyd Street and go through there and wait in line and then
Right.
walk halfway around the stadium to our seats and up and down the steps and everything. And then in between time, some of us are paying $8 for a can of beer, and it's just not. Yeah, it just got to be too much of a chore for me. But I
Right.
do hope, and I sincerely pray that the younger generation will be able to come in and find some things that will acquiesce them a little bit, like lower prices on concessions would be a big one right there.
Hmm.
Having a moratorium on season ticket increased pricing as well after this year. I think that, Howard Schnellenberger once said many years ago, in referring, to Papa John's Stadium before, he didn't get in there, but he said, "You want to fill that place? Win some football games."
Yeah.
Okay, it's an easy fix. If you go 10-1-1 for the season, you go to a major bowl
You're going to
like we
start filling it up. Yeah.
did in the '90s. But if you struggle through a 6-6 season, there's controversies and the fans are, maybe put in half what they can into that stadium. You got some issues there, and I think you need to get them solved.
And
I
from the
think
sounds of it, from the news we're hearing from football, that may be something that's in the future. Maybe I'm not a big
maybe.
football, but yeah.
I think
And I think,
outreach is an important thing too.
yeah,
I mean, I'm going into, the 22-23 season will be my fifth or sixth since graduating, like going into that season, and I haven't been reached. I was a 5 years Cardinal Athletic Fund member, attended all the football and basketball games, attended countless other sports that are checked in, registered, and no one has reached out to me individually by phone or by email since the year after I graduated about wanting to start up season tickets. It's like it's so easy, and maybe I wouldn't get them right. Maybe my situation wouldn't be where I can get them right now, but it doesn't hurt to ask, right? I mean,
Right.
like you're not getting outreach to that young generation that you want to get into the stands. You're not outreaching to the ones that were most likely to go when they were in college and are still in the area. So it's just kind of a one of those things that you would hope that a with some stability in the position, you would hope that becomes a priority.
and not so only much in football, which is obviously has the potential to be a huge fundraiser for U of L women's U of L athletics, but also we're talking both basketballs here.
Hmm.
We're talking even about softball and women's soccer and field hockey, all that are right now kind of known as Olympic sports for the most part and aren't counted to be big fundraisers. Yeah, I'd love to see some of the crowds that we had out there for Almost Stadium back in the days of Alicia Wolney and Tanner Fowler and players like that when the Cards were a softball power and were feared by a lot of teams. But we'll see what happens with it. Like I say, stay tuned. If you liked chapter one, chapter two should be even
Hey,
more interesting.
part of that is attracting all American caliber players too, right?
Yes, it is. It's getting
So
the good ones.
yeah.
And uh, do we have the coaching staff that can do that? I think we do. I think they've got the capabilities to do it. But what is it that's going to make a kid that is, all American in high school take a look and say, I've got, let's see, Louisville, Oklahoma, Texas A&M, Kentucky all after me in softball.
I think you
Uh,
just totally whiffed on my setup of a transition there. Let's shout out. You talking about
swing and miss.
Carmen Greenwood. Yeah, All
Who did, who
American.
did who did not swing and miss very frequently?
No, she
Part,
didn't
part
very
of
much at
all
all.
Americanness.
We're kind of transitioning topics about it. I thought I'd set it up there, but
God love her.
yeah, Carmen. Let's talk about Carmen getting that All American nod. That's impressive.
Indeed, it is. And one of the things that is so great about it is she left a situation down at Auburn that wasn't the best for her, but she had the opportunity to come up and play softball with her sister, Cass Greenwood. And I know she was excited about that. And also saw a chance to, go from one conference to another, the ACC, from the SEC, a chance to play some ball. And she came here and just basically was a shining, shining star for the Cardinal softball team, guys.
Yeah, you had a reliable player, both offensively and defensively. She was a staple out in the outfield and wasn't one to make errors. She's going to catch the fly ball or stop the ground ball that's not going to bounce between her legs. She had a nice cannon of an arm to get the throw back in, and she gunned some runners down trying to push it for home before.
Yeah.
And then at the plate, she was just misreliable. Her batting average and on pace percentage were insanely high. And not only that, but she had enough speed that she could turn a hit into an extra base hit or steal and get in scoring position fairly easily. And and as a leadoff batter, that's a lot of what you need. And I think she kind of mastered it while she was here.
Look at the numbers. Her career batting average was 408. That's pretty incredible.
That's
which means that it went down because this season she only batted 400. only
Only 400.
Wow.
She was kind of sloughing there, wasn't she?
Wow.
Yeah, she had 14 doubles, 7 triples, 70 hits this year. 54 RBIs. That's pretty amazing. Her slugging percentage was 1 point, which is pretty decent right there. Anytime you're over 1 of her on base slugging percentage, that's pretty cool. And she was 1.270. Scored 54 runs. She was, I think, and then they had her rotating in the lineup where she was normally batting, but she was usually up there in the top 2 or 3 when she came up to the plate, to start a game out. And it's going to be big shoes to fill, guys, for sure. But certainly, we hope that she won't be a stranger to Auburn. That we'll still see her out there doing stuff like that, come into games and stuff. And certainly thank her for the time that she spent here. No doubt about that. Looking into some other things that are going on, we got some news that Kelsa World was retiring from swimming. And then the next day she said, you know what, I want to go into coaching. But not at Louisville. She's headed to Notre Dame. Interesting move for her, gang. What do we think about this one?
I didn't catch that news initially that she was going. It got posted on our site, and I went, "Oh, really? Huh? I had missed it." So it was good for me to read the article that day to catch that. So I think it's great. Obviously, there was a connection there with the coaches that are up at Notre Dame now from their time where they were at UofL. So that's always nice to go in there to familiar connections and people that and you can work well with. So. Man, wish her the best. That's fantastic.
She is certainly one that we'll always remember here for swimming at Louisville and the many records and events she took. But I think she's also got the potential in case to be a great coach here. Am I wrong on this? Or
just her experience alone, and she knows what it takes to win national championships. She knows what it takes to advance to some of these world championships. She's been in the Olympics. She's got more experience than most swimmers at her age, and she's still young enough that she can relate to a lot of the current student athletes you'll see out there, both at the high school and collegiate level. So she's going to be just a kind of a great point of connection for them up at Notre Dame as a recruiting aspect and just helping younger players develop both in the pool itself as well as adapting to the way of life and school.
I think something that can speak to that may speak to her potential as a coach. We look at how fantastic she was, right, in her signature event being the butterfly, and then you look at the fact that some of her records were broken by another swimmer that was on campus, had arrived on campus before she left UofL, and that can just show you that while she was crushing it in the pool in her senior year, those younger swimmers were learning from her, and she was teaching them and getting them pushed forward, especially in the event that she dominated, to the point where they could be just as good or better than her at that event. I think that's not a coincidence. It's not just like UofL happened to have two of the best butterfly swimmers in the country on the same team by happenstance, right? I think that she can, um, and she swims the other strokes well too. But I think that she can really show what she can do as a coach, and um, hopefully she's not doing it just for Notre Dame and making them way better than UofL, or she can make them really good and then return to UofL when the time's right and carry the tradition on here.
Yeah, I don't know what type of openings Arthur Albero had on his staff. You know, if she had the interest in Louisville, I don't know if he'd been able to make room for her or not, but certainly glad to see her in coaching now, and hopefully she'll turn out some really, really good swimmers. And then eventually, maybe someday, find her way back here to Louisville. I think Louisville will always kind of be her home, you know, no matter where she's at coaching. So let's see if we can get her back home here eventually. Uh, Good stuff for her. She was certainly a fun person to interview, much less watch. So go, 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 Kelsey, go. Other news, we've got a Louisville women's golfer who said, you know what, I think I'm going to try this U.S. Open thing this year and see what happens for me. And lo and behold, after 2 days of activity, she has made the cut and she will play the final 2 days in the U.S. Open. How about Lauren Hartledge, gang? This is very impressive, Jared.
Oh yeah, I mean she's only a couple years removed from the collegiate level, and she's already, advancing as one of the higher performing American golfers in the U.S. Open at this time. And I think we saw a lot of talent out of her when she was here at UofL, and we all knew that she was going to go far with her golf career. But how rapidly she's advancing in her professional career, I think it may almost be a little bit of a surprise. It's awesome to see a Kentucky girl, born and raised here, doing well, a UofL graduate doing well. And I think in terms of a recruiting aspect, UofL needs to milk that and highlight that fact. But yeah, I'm happy for Lauren Hartledge, and hopefully she'll continue a great, I guess, amateur rookie U.S. Open for her.
She's actually on the pro tour. She qualified last year. Graduated from Q school, LPGA Q school, last season. So she is fully on the LPGA. This, I think, one of the first events of the season for her.
Wow, that's a real quick. I mean, she only graduated 2 years so to be on there that quick is kind of unheard of.
It's just another step in a career that has been for her one thing at a time. I had the great privilege and pleasure of interviewing her a couple years ago when she was still down at U of L. And we talked a little bit at length about what was next after college. And she said, I really can't focus on that right now. That's not where my mind is. My mind is doing the best I can for the Louisville program here and shooting the best I can for them to try to get them to, the next rounds and stuff, whether it be regionals or whether it be me, shooting for an individual championship. Once that was done, then she moved on to what she saw as the next step, and that was trying to get on the LPGA tour. So, and I think that's a wonderful way to approach it. Sometimes you hear, freshmen and sophomores talking about, yeah, well, when I get to the pros, that wasn't the way with Lauren. She was always and has always been very focused on what was immediately ahead of her, not what was down the road. And certainly in 17th place as they get ready to go into action, I think what she tees off today shortly after we're done here. What, a 12-5 or
12 total fives.
Yeah.
And the course is playing very, very interestingly today. You've got some players that have gone. You got a player that's +8 through 16, another player that's +7 through 12.
Right.
So some people not playing very well at all, but then you've got other people who have finished their round at -3 on the day. A couple of people who have moved up to that tie for 17 spot. Actually, interestingly, it's the same pairing. So two players have moved up. Both are 2 under through 3 holes today, and have moved up to that tied for 17 slot. So could be interesting which direction she goes with today's event. But there's been movement happening. Like I put in the article, someone was, -7 on the first day, another player -7 on the second day. So it can be done, and she's still in striking distance. And a top 10 finish would be fantastic top 25 would be great as well in an event like this. So let's just hope she can keep on it.
Certainly be a wonderful thing, not only for her own career, as you mentioned, but also for the University of Louisville women's golf program, for them to be able to point proudly at Lauren Harlage and say, yes, she went here and she was a
Yeah.
Cardinal. So, moving into some other stuff, Casey, you talked a little bit today about the WCWS, and no, that's not our new radio station we're going to be on. That is the Women's College World Series, something that the Cards did not get into, but certainly some opponents in there that we're kind of familiar with, just from the way that they've played over the years, and also the fact that Louisville has played them in the past several times. So let's kind of just look at that briefly, gang, here, and see what's going on. Is this Oklahoma's thing to lose here, Jared, or are we going to see some upsets in here? Has Texas got a shot at this? What's the deal?
I thought it was Oklahoma's thing to lose before the first pitch of the season began. They're just that good and that dominant of a program. And then you saw 2-seed Florida State get upset in their own regional. 3-seed Virginia Tech got upset in the super regional. So you've already cut out your considered top 2 competitors. And Oklahoma was out here. They were run rolling people in their regional earlier this year, and they really put a hand up on UCF in the super regional. So it just shows how dominant of a program Oklahoma softball is right now. And you can compare it to the UConn women's basketball of 10 years ago and how dominant and great they were. You go through teams that are just that good, and you have to admire and respect just the quality of the program. A lot of it goes into the coaching staff, the players, recruiting. I think a lot of the credit needs to also go to the athletics program itself in terms of investing enough money and resources into the program to put them in a position to be that successful, which sometimes, that's kind of a hint at UofL. Like, don't forget to provide the appropriate resources for our women's athletics as well, so they can be on that national stage as well. But I think Oklahoma's the clear and obvious favorite here.
It is kind of an interesting scenario, guys, when you take a look at the 8 schools that are out there in Oklahoma City right now. Only 2 of them are east of the Mississippi in location, which kind of surprised me in Northeast, Northwestern, and also Florida.
Yeah, it's
And
interesting.
Northwestern barely.
And I tell you what, the lack of success by the SEC this year is interesting because they're very dominant in softball. So
Yeah,
what happened to them?
They had what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4. I think they had 5 seeded teams.
Yeah,
Maybe just 4,
flamed out.
and only 1 advanced.
Yeah.
So it was a tough event tough regional qualifying, and then super regionals for the SEC. It's definitely a Big 12 year with Oklahoma, Texas, and OSU all there.
Yeah,
we would certainly love to see Louisville get into that rarefied air, being one of those 8 teams next year. And let's kick it around real quickly here. What have the Cards got to do to get where they can be a competitive team and maybe get into the regional and play some regional and have some regional success next year? I think pitching is obviously one of the main things that people think of needing, a bit of an uptick for the Cardinal softball program. But what are some of the things here, Jared? You saw them play a lot.
You got to win.
Yeah.
Well,
Coach Walls school of philosophy. Thank you very much. Yes.
Thanks, Captain Obvious. Moving on.
Yeah.
No, I think the pitching is by far the biggest thing you need to focus on, and just having consistent go-to pitchers that can handle being in tight situations with multiple runners on base and getting out of those situations without, finding ways that you start bleeding and have to bandage yourself up. And then I think just more consistency on offense. You see a lot of players who have high potential to have great batting averages, on base percentages. There's a lot of speed out there. We've seen, I think at one point, the entire starting lineup last year had recorded multiple home runs. So there's power behind there. I think you just have to keep developing that. You've got a younger squad. Build around that young squad. You've got a lot of freshmen off this recent year. I think 6 of them we counted earlier at one
Yeah.
point this season that had some type of major impact. Build and focus the program around that. Bring in some solid recruits and keep pushing from there.
Yeah,
Play,
I was gonna
just play Louisville softball. We'll be fine.
Yeah, no, I was gonna want to cut you off, let you finish with him, but yeah, I was gonna pick up on that idea. Is that a lot of times we talk about we need to build up the recruiting. We have recruited well in the past year or two. We have some incredibly talented players in here as freshmen and sophomore. Now it's time to go out and perform with some of those. We need to continue that recruiting success. But now it's time to go out there and perform and start getting some wins and start showing up. And that's how you start to build that kind of virtuous cycle of saying, hey, look, we're having success. We're seeing players come in and develop well and be able to play well and be able to have some wins. And that makes recruiting even easier to do in the future. So we're kind of in on the beginning of that cycle where, okay, we've recruited well. We got some really great players. Now let's take them. We need to make sure we need to get some wins. Like you said, kind of joke about it, but that is the part of it where, we're set up well right now, I think. Um, Pitching is going to be a question probably next year to some degree, I think, and if not a little bit this year, but we're set up well. But we need to get some performance. We need to get some execution out of it that we can then point to and say, okay, here's what UofL softball can be. Let's help us get the next generation of recruiting in there.
When you kind of take a look at the gist of the team that just finished their season, I think at one time we were pretty regularly putting 3 freshmen in the infield.
Yeah.
Which is, can be a plus and a minus, certainly a great opportunity for them to learn as they get further on in their careers, but also freshmen are going to make freshman mistakes, right?
Yeah, depending on who was hurt at what time, but yes.
Yeah. An outfield that I think regularly had 2 freshmen in it as well at times out there, along with Carm Greenwood, of course. But and catcher, where we had a very, very great transfer come in to take over the catching role. But you take a look at the projected roster so far for 22, and there are no catchers on that roster. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Does Allie Alexander move from shortstop to catcher? I doubt it. Do we have a fresh?
Yeah, shortstop.
Well, at least softball has time to find a catcher. If you look at the women's soccer roster, they don't have a healthy goalkeeper on the roster right now because Olivia, who was the backup catcher last year, is coming off of a surgery right now. So not to try and shift away from softball, but I think just kind of a more like time important event in terms of trying to recruit is women's soccer's got to get a keeper. But yeah, softball losing all their catchers from this past season, they're going to have to do a little bit of work.
As a former goalkeeper, let me tell you, kind of an important position.
Yeah, very important.
You might need it.
And I think that we just talk to Gabby Cazellas and tell her to dye her hair blonde, change her first name to Tabby, and come back as the little sister.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Tabby. I'm Gabby's younger sister. I'm a goalkeeper too, Coach. Hi, how are you? Should I take economics? I don't know.
I think KFD ought to go over to the training facility for Racing Global and check out the academy players and say, any of you all like gonna reclassify? Pretend that you graduated right now.
Yeah.
Go ahead and come here.
Obviously, there are a ton of good high school goalkeepers out there. Hopefully, the Cards can get that position solved. As like you say, it's a pretty important position to have out on the actual soccer pitch, and not having anybody that has got any experience in it right now. I'm sure Karen Ferguson Days is having some interesting evenings thinking about that, right? I know I would be if I was in the same position. Hopefully they'll get it done. Other stuff that's going on, guys, like we mentioned, I've been spending a little more time watching the WNBA right now that a lot of things are done, and we currently have 4 Cardinals that are in the WNBA right now. Asia Dore kind of getting her feet wet again after 2 years of absence. Kind of a backup guard right now, but still seeing some minutes, getting herself back into shape. Dana Evans obviously doing some great things up with the Chicago Sky,
Mhm.
although kind of in a backup role there behind Vandersloot and Quigley. Still seeing some great minutes. Maisha Hines Allen, what can you say about her? She's just the dominating force up there with the Mystics. She and EDD, two very, very strong players. And then the surprise, the baby and Emily Ingsler, who's up there pounding some people with the Indiana Fever right now, guys. I'm pretty proud of these four that are on the WNBA rosters. I still think we should have a couple more on there. My own biased opinion, but let's just take it around real quick. What do y'all think about this Cardinal WNBA lineup?
I think Jazz not being in it is the surprise that all of us would have after getting cut by the Liberty and the season that she had last year and all the noise she was making and you know series or subject of many highlights on social media. It really seemed like one that the Liberty would want to keep her, and two that once they let her go that somebody else would happily find a spot for her on their roster. But um, I think to the detriment of a lot of good young players, there's a lot of staying power in the WNBA. I mean, there are a lot of players that are just still going, and I think that women's basketball that's kind of a product of the women's basketball game, which is a lot more technical um, rather than physical in some capacities, and it allows for those longer careers. But with the smaller um, rosters on the teams and the smaller pool of teams, it really who's going to give up somebody like Vandersloot or Diana Taurasi or anybody like that for an unproven player when one of those kind of players is really dominant and still dominant at this time.
Is it a situation then? I'll ask you, Jared, where the WNBA needs to grow and add a few more teams now? They're rolling along here with 12. Attendance varies on what city they're in. Could this be a six team league?
I thought it should have expanded a while back. You've seen around the country at the high school, collegiate, and professional level just a growing interest in women's basketball. But in terms of ESPN and other major, broadcast companies just still refusing to give them the recognition and airtime that they deserve has kind of been the big push, like that we're everyone's going up against to try and get this league to expand and increase
Let's
the salary.
let's put blame where it lies. The NBA is more interested in pumping money into the G League to try and make it a competition with collegiate basketball than they are in putting money into the WNBA.
Yeah.
It's
Oh
just,
yeah, the NBA will just never respect the WNBA,
it's
which
part
is
of
a
the
sad
league. Like,
truth.
give
Yeah.
them the money. Like, I don't know, it's not
Well,
complicated.
But that's the funny thing. Like the NBA as an organization, as a corporate organization, may not. But you look at the individual NBA players. Holy cow, the respect they have for the WNBA is amazing, almost across the board. So let's shout out the players who are supporting and supportive. But yeah, organizationally, yeah, there's some problems there.
It's the people in the suits that are
Yeah,
behind their four walls and a door there. That's where
Yeah.
the issue lies, not in the players
it's
themselves.
the people who are looking at spreadsheets, not ball courts.
Yeah.
If we could get them to expand 4 more teams somehow down the road somewhere, is Louisville a candidate to get one of these 4 spots?
Yes.
We hope
I
so.
mean,
Guys?
yeah.
The money does the money make sense? I think is
Yeah.
what somebody's going to think. Hey, you already have you already have the Fever right there, which could be negative or it could be positive. If you want to say, well, yeah, that means that's shorter travel time.
Natural rivalry there.
Yeah, but I think that you know areas that already have NBA teams because of their relationship, I think is probably going to have a better chance at that. But I think it would be if it was in a vacuum and you're not looking at other decisions like that, I think it's a no brainer when you think about the fan base that you could have and what you could get out of that immediately. Just look at how successful Racing Louisville has been from a fan attendance perspective, and and some of the noise they're actually making this season, to some people's surprise, I think it's not that complicated. When you put a team in a place where people want to watch them, and the rest will follow.
Got this beautiful downtown arena sitting down there that isn't doing a whole lot.
Empty right now.
May, June,
Empty.
July, and August, and you think we could get 5,000 in there a night for WNBA basketball?
Yeah,
I'm
I-
thinking we could easily. Yeah.
I'd be there.
Oh, I would too. I'd
Yeah.
apply for a media pass.
Yeah,
I'd say,
immediately.
hey, yeah.
Yeah, with the WNBA season not clashing with the collegiate basketball season,
Yeah, absolutely, I'd be there.
helps with the push to bring it here. If your seasons were colliding, then I would absolutely say no, because your focus is on U of L
Right.
women's basketball. But it's more of a summertime thing. You see it run for about 3-4 months in the summer. Like, it's not interfering with what anybody else is doing U of L wise. Like, bring them on in. I'd love
Yeah.
to go out and watch. Get a couple U of L players on the Louisville team. You're going to have a huge crowd.
I think we need to talk to some of the pro Juris supporters to churn their monies and ideas in a different direction and back a WNBA franchise in Louisville.
Be careful. There's still an interim position available at the University of Louisville that they might turn their eyes on.
That is correct.
Rich for president.
Let's see. Do we really? Yeah, I guess we could use a president at the campus. Sure, why not? Yeah, let's go ahead and get a president here. But then maybe Tom Jarrett will be nominated for that too. You never know. Interesting, but hey, we have already run upon the noon hour here, guys, and what has been a fun discussion today on a lot of different things. So let's go ahead and kind of roll into some final thoughts, if we will. Let's go ahead and start with you, Case. You've been absent for a few weeks, like we all have, but you even more so. You get final thoughts start.
All right. Just gonna shout out some of the people that will be competing over the next week, when they head to Eugene. Unfortunately, the 4x100 team, where Sinclair Savage would have been trying to go for 2 championships in Eugene, that team got disqualified in their event. But on the final day of events, Katie Martin did qualify in the 400-meter hurdles. Emily Scott and Soledad Jean did not advance in the women's high jump.
Close, but didn't
they were
quite.
close. And to follow up on that number, U of L will have a total of 8 qualifiers advancing to the championships. That is their most since the program record was set in 2009 with 12. So a lot of people going to be going for championships, and so I wish them the best of luck, and to bring some more individual championships back home to U of L.
Yes, indeed. Bring those championships on in. Jeff, what you got for me?
Yeah, so we didn't pick up. We talked about players in the WNBA. Let's talk a little bit about NWSL. We got Amina Ekic, of course, still being all over the marketing for Racing Louisville. We also have Gabby Vincent playing for the Washington Spirit, are the U of L rooting interest there. The schedule, just looking at the Racing Louisville schedule, it's probably a really, really great time to go out and see them. They play tonight, 8 o'clock. Should be a beautiful, beautiful evening out at Lynn Stadium. And then next week again at 8 o'clock as well. So hopefully similar sort of great weather for that. And then particularly of interest, and mentioning both Gabby and Amina, those two teams play. Racing Louisville and the Washington Spirit do play each other on the 17th. That is in Washington. That is an away game, but it is 7:30 p.m. Friday the 17th. So that could be an interesting chance to see 2 U of L alumni playing against each other on the pitch that night. So, I may head out to this game tonight because it should be a beautiful, beautiful evening out there to watch some good soccer.
Could be a fun time as well, and we'll keep you away from the hubbub on Central. Well, because in addition to things going on with Louisville baseball over there, Churchill Downs just got a fantastic card today, and that'll be part of my final thoughts. But Mr. Jared, what's going on with you, bud? Final thoughts?
Yeah, I know we don't like summertime here at Cardinal Couple because it gives us less stuff to cover and talk about, but I think it's a well-deserved time for our student athletes as they can go spend time with family, with friends, go on vacation, just some time off that doesn't involve constant everyday practices and workouts. So it's, I'm happy that the student athletes have a little bit of time just to kind of rest, and looking forward to getting them back out uh, on their respective fields and courts here soon.
As it was in grade school and high school when we all looked forward to the summer months where we didn't have to go to school, it even continues as you get into college and our student athletes with collegiate degrees or in the process of getting those collegiate degrees get a little spend a little time off as well. And hopefully some of them are down in the Cooper Center practicing their jump shots and rebounding skills. But I just say that in jest. Final thoughts here. I did want to kind of mention if you're not headed down to the ball game today, but you still want to get down close to the campus, hey, why not head on over to Churchill? They have a wonderful card over there today, Saturday racing. Of course, next week is the Belmont Stakes. This week, Churchill is offering six, count 'em, six stake races over there. Just an incredible collection of horses at the track right now to run. So that's where my focus will be this afternoon, kind of watching to see what's going on out at the Twin Spires. So we'd like to thank everybody for tuning in and listening to us today. And unless you know something we don't, we'll be back with you next week here on the Cardinal Couple Radio Hour podcast. Have a good afternoon, everybody.